Welcome to The Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. On this special episode, I'm picking up an interview from a live stream I hosted for Retail Council of Canada's Retail Human Resources Forum. I'm joined by Liz Volk, Chief Human Resources Officer, and Alex Green, Chief Marketing Officer from Longos, a 65-year-old innovative family regional grocery store operating in Southern Ontario. Employee engagement at Longos is deeply rooted in the value of collaboration between the HR and marketing teams. Liz and Alex join me for a fireside chat to share the keys to collaboration and driving transformational change. Learn how, in this unique relationship, these teams work together to deliver messaging, training, and support for employees that then translates into increased engagement and the best customer experiences. And welcome, Alex and Liz. We have a fun session together. Thank you both for joining me. Let's jump right in. In lieu of kind of going through your backgrounds, fantastic depth of experience. Folks can check that out on LinkedIn or on the website page. I'm going to ask you this one question. Tell me something that you wouldn't find on your LinkedIn profile, something that might surprise us about yourself. Liz, you go first.
Sure. Well, thanks, Michael. One of the questions actually that we always ask here at Longos is, what's your favorite food? I mean, being in the food business, always great to know. So it's actually part of what we do. And we put it on all of our team members' tags, and we put it on their name tags, and we put it on all of our nameplates here in the support center. So for me, it's lobster. My favorite food is lobster. I love it in any way, shape, or form. And what's exciting is, for those of you that shop Longos, you may know this, but coming up in June,
Father's
of course,
Day
is Father's Day weekend, and we always have our notorious Lobster Fest. So it's that's probably my most exciting shopping day of the year. We sell amazing lobsters flown in of all different sizes, and so I just go to town on lobster on that weekend. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, fantastic. Me and you both. I love Father's Day lobster event, so I happen to live near Longos. Alex, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's a very classic Longos approach. I think there was a sales plug in there somewhere. Thank you. You know what? I've got something a little bit different to share. I mean, I wanted to share sort of a surprising insight that I've had over the last little bit that I think sort of weaves into the conversation we're having today. I think we've all been in those meetings where the slide that opens up is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And if I was going to be totally honest, before my experience working at Longos, I didn't actually believe that statement. But a couple of really sort of interesting and powerful things have happened over the last 5 years, a lot of which, you know, I credit with the work that I have done with Liz. Longos has an extremely strong culture built on some very simple principles, treating people like family, always doing the right thing. And it's very entrepreneurial and sort of empowering. And then we came into COVID, and we've got 6,000 team members, and watching how quickly everybody shifted and evolved around those core principles of our culture and our values to keep our team members safe, to keep our guests safe. And I love the fact that we were one of the first to sort of mandate masks within our store as an example of that. And strategy didn't do that. That was all culture and values. So, you know, I may just be catching up to everybody else in the room, but I'm like, yeah, culture does eat strategy for breakfast. I now feel like strategy's role is really about how do you channel the unique aspects of your culture and some of those unique capabilities that it enables to be able to create more value. And I feel like marketing's there to keep it grounded in sort of guest insight and to really powerfully tell those stories, both to our team members and our guests. So I thank you for the opportunity to join today, because I had some time to sit back and reflect, which I know is not easy in retail every day. But that's a big shift for me in my perspective. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today and, sharing more of insights around that. So thank you.
Well, that was fantastic. And I mean, we'll get to this point, but it's not always usual that we see HR together with marketing presenting at the HR Retail Conference. Sometimes we've had marketers come in and talk about the tradecraft of retail marketing just to kind of expand kind of knowledge base. But this is a real joint presentation. We'll get to a bit more about that in a few minutes.
This is also really natural for Liz and I to be side by side. Our offices are side by side in the office.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so this is like this is how we roll.
Yeah.
Perfect. Liz, we've talked a little bit about Longos, but you know, from lobster to 6,000 associates. But for those perhaps not in Ontario or maybe not as familiar with Longos, give us a high level. What's Longos all about? What do you do, and what makes you different?
Sure. So Longos family run grocery retailer here in the Greater Toronto area. As you mentioned, we have 6,000 team members in the company, and exciting news for us last year, we joined a larger family. So we're actually part of the Empire group of companies. So many of you would know Empire under a variety of banners that they have. Some of the ones that they'd be familiar with here in Toronto would be Sobeys, Farm Boy. Out west, they have Thrifty Foods, IGA. So it's great to be part of, of a larger family, as it were. And so it's been an exciting time over the past year being a part of that. The 6,000 team members for us are made up of approximately about 36 stores, compacted, as you say, in the GTA area. And then we also have our online business, Grocery Gateway. And today I'm dialing in actually from our support center, which is in Vaughan. And our support center has our distribution center attached. And we also have kind of a central kitchen, we call it. And that's where a lot of our fresh fruits, cut veg happen to ship out to our stores. So lots happening there. Second part of your question was, what makes us unique, right, in this crazy marketplace, competitive marketplace. And Alex touched upon it. I really do believe it's our culture and how we've shown up. Alex talked about the fact that it's about treating you like family, and we talk about that all the time. We'll talk today about how we actually work together on the transformation of the organization. But I think that shows up in how our team members, are in our stores with our guests every day, just kind of delivering that great service that they deliver.
Alex, talk about the role of the associates in delivering that brand promise, and the associates, whether that's in the physical stores or on the doorstep with the Grocery Gateway Longos delivery. What is in your mind as you think about that frontline touch point with consumers, and how does that connect to the brand values that you architect as kind of master brand values and execute on different touch points?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you think about this idea of treating people like family, and how we bring that to life in a consistent way through our experience. That is the beating heart of sort of our team members and the types of experiences that they create. They're experiences that only they can absolutely create, and maybe building a little bit on Claudine's comment around love. Like it's those gestures that they create and that they have for and with our guests that I think are a huge defining part of both our experience and our success over time. The Longos brand is pretty unique. Like our brand love scores are off the charts. Like they're like nothing I've seen on any other brand, and particularly for those people that shop us. And when you ask people about it, it almost always comes back to a team member story. It can be small little things, like I asked about a product and they always walk me to it. Yeah. It was raining and somebody brought out an umbrella and walked me to my car. And then there's like there are these big moments and gestures. Like we had one guest who came in with a health condition, needed to eat more fish, wasn't comfortable cooking fish. And we have a seafood manager who's sourcing recipes, getting them to try different things and sort of coaching them along this journey. So there are these really powerful, meaningful moments that only our team members can create. And they're at the heart of this love that people have for our experience. And it all comes back to those cultures and the culture and the values that have been reinforced over this sort of 65 years of modeling, storytelling, showcasing, that it's now it's part of our DNA and how we're wired.
I was looking at the some pictures from one of the last store openings, and I saw Gus Longo kind of merchandising the produce area, and it just made me think about, again, you can't get him out of that store, but communicating the core brand values of the family and the business, right? That you're kind of in it together is really, I mean, he was just doing what he was doing. He wasn't meant to be there as making any kind of statement, but it made a very powerful statement, I think. Yeah. I think to everyone.
You cannot quickly walk a store with any family member without re-merchandising, refacing, picking up garbage. Exactly. That is also part of our culture. It's like if you see a piece of garbage on your way into the store, you pick it up. And if you see a gap in a shelf, you fill it. Like we are all wired to drive that out and to make sure we're creating the best guest experience possible.
You mentioned earlier on that this kind of, you two beside each other was kind of a natural state, so to speak. So let's take us back, Alex, if you would, to how that has begun. Liz, you've been with Longos you're a veteran of Longos. Alex, you're a newer addition to the team. Yeah. So, but it all came together in a big business transformation project that HR and marketing were the co-sponsors of this. Take us back a few clicks, so to speak, and explain how that came to be and then how that relation formed, which continues clearly today.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I'm sure everyone in the room can agree, I mean, it's been a pretty disruptive time in retail. I know within grocery retail, there are so many things that have been changing. So if you rewind the tape 4 years, we were sort of beginning this process to say, okay, like there are all of these disruptive forces in the marketplace. You know, we've got new entrants, we have the role of new technology, we've got data, analytics, personalization. We've got the Amazons on one side, we have these smaller experiential retailers on the other. And it was, it was the chance for us to take a step back and say, okay, how do we make sure we're as relevant as possible based on who we are, our core values, and some of those unique competencies that we have to be relevant for the next generation of shoppers. And even within that, relevant for the next generation of team members, as all of those things were fundamental shifts within our business. So it was the chance for Liz and I, to work with a broad cross-functional group to take that step back and not sort of change the culture, but think about that new chance to reframe it and rechannel it into the next evolution of growth for the business. So it was a pretty classic business transformation project. We have initiatives across team members, merchandising, whole bunch of marketing, guest experience, store design,
big
loyalty,
systems,
personalization, as well as community and elevating how we give back and what that looks like for the next 5 to 10 years. So it was a pretty big strategic reset for the business, and it was framed up by Anthony, who's I remember in one of the first meetings he talked about, like, this is not going to be a pretty 200-page deck that gathers dust in the corner of office. Like, there can't be this gap between strategy and execution, and I think that's how you end up with sort of Liz and I co-chairing, and in many ways just facilitating this broader group to be able to deliver this transformative experience into the marketplace. I mean, it's a huge change management initiative. It all starts internally. When we think about, it could be the internal communications, it could be org work, training, development, new capabilities being built. And then on the other side, I think you've got marketing, being like really close to the guest insights and feeding those in. Yeah. And then also bringing that lens to the storytelling. Like, how do we create a really tangible vision for what this future is so that internally we can rally around it? And then as we start to develop it, we can really celebrate it in powerful ways for our guests to drive the awareness and the credit. So I think that's where it all started. Some interesting insights along the way. I mean, I think both Liz and I really learned that, it's about going on the journey together, both the two of us and the way that we work together through the process, but also that broader team, that if we weren't building momentum across that whole group, we wouldn't have enough to be able to drive to the end to get impact in the marketplace. I think there was a bunch of learning around making it tangible, really tangible, especially in a very entrepreneurial, value-focused business. Yeah. Like, internally, like how do 6,000 team members interpret what we're doing? Not some vague philosophical thing, but something that was extremely tangible. Yeah. And then, testing and learning as quickly as we could, like getting real prototypes into the hands of team members and guests, because it all sounds good in a boardroom, and then nothing survives exactly as you imagine once it makes contact with reality.
Liz, share your perspectives. I mean, when you first got that call, or when you first had that meeting with Anthony, he said, "Congratulations, you're now going to co-chair a business transformation process." What were your early thoughts? I mean, the fact that it's, again, partnered with marketing. I think I wouldn't call it unusual, but it's certainly innovative and certainly consumer focused at its core. But what were your observations, and kind of talk about this as the catalyst, which is the ongoing relationship between the two departments, if we can call it that has led to continued success?
Well, certainly very excited. I mean, who gets that kind of opportunity to really step back and think about what's the unique value that the business brings to the consumer, right? So to be a part of that was super exciting. The catalyst, I think, for Alex and I was the fact that we were able to continually look at this through both the guest and the team member lens, and balancing both, because we knew how critical that was. And, as Alex said, I had been here in the organization longer, so I was able to provide a little bit of that history, tribal knowledge. How did we get here? What was happening in the culture? What was important to our team members? And grounding some of that. And Alex was there with all the great, exciting ideas and new ways of looking at it. So the nice piece of it where we were able to tap into each other's strengths and challenge each other and then bring the rest of the team along. Because as Alex said, it was really across the entire organization. So it was everything from reinventing our private label product lineup and how are we going to do that and inform our team members, all the way through to what are we expecting to be different in the guest experience and how do we want our team members to show up? So lots of opportunity for debate and discussion. And Alex was great because we took a look at so many important, iconic elements of the organization, our original purpose, our vision statement, our values. And we had lots of discussion, but what Alex brought to the table was a way for us to modernize and simplify those and bring them into language and practical tools that we could then introduce to the company. So I think that's what really galvanized our relationship to say, hey, this can work out really well together. Because really it's all about, the guest and the team members.
I mean, in many ways, the organization owns the brand values, but Alex and his team would set forward brand values, sometimes in campaign. And as you said, I know from experience, lots of Longos family members have been there for many, many years, which means they, it could mean they're resistant to change, or it could mean they love it the most. How do you bring those brand values to life on the grocery store floor and on the doorstep? Like, what do you go through with the employees to make those values, whether it's, family values, 65 years of business? How do you make those come to life? What are your kind of top tips for doing that?
Yeah. Well, and again, it all just worked out perfectly. We couldn't have timed it better, how things came together, but you would think we actually had a plan, Alex, but we needed
very nimble.
Yeah, agile. Everything's agile.
Everything's agile. That's right. I knew that we have, for many, many years, from an employer perspective, dovetailed off the strength of the Longos brand, consumer brand. And so it was time to actually do our employer brand work. So again, being a part of this transformation, it just made a whole heck of a lot of sense that we use the same agency. So we actually turned to that agency and work that they did. So when they did focus groups for our guests and figured out what was really important to our guests and had done all of that great work, they followed the same methodology with our team members. And then we were able to take all of that data and say, what are some of the common themes? And how can the brand show up from an employer brand and what's important to our team members and have the same look, feel, and tone that our consumer brand had. So it worked out perfectly. So employer brand was how we did it. The second piece, I would say, we launched a new learning management platform system. We were in the process of doing that. So big change. What it meant was team members would be doing daily training across the organization in bite-sized learning. So we were excited about that. But the learning and development team was stepping back and saying, well, in order to get people interested to go to that actual platform and to use it, what's the first thing out of the gate we should come out with? So it was perfect. We came out with everything related to the transformation. So conversations around our new values, what's our purpose statement, our vision statement, and it made it a lot of fun and engagement for our team members. And then more recently, what we've done is we've launched a recognition platform as well. So our team members can go in and recognize peer-to-peer. Our leaders can recognize team members. And that is all built around what we call our family standards, which are the behaviors of the transformation, as well as our values. So, those are just some of the examples beyond, also Alex's team helping us regularly with all of our recruiting messages. And just making sure, again, that fun tone that you see in our stores for our guests, that shows up for our team members as well.
It's more now than ever before that great service is kind of table stakes at retail now. It's kind of where the journey begins. What and how do you ensure through your people, if you can, that they have those key differentiators? And what do those differentiators look like in a Longos shopping experience, whether it's at the doorstep or in the store?
Again, I think we've talked so much about culture, but I think it really does start with making sure that your team members are connected to your purpose. So our purpose for the company is fueling happier and healthier lives. And we demonstrate and talk about examples of that on a regular basis. But I think the next thing is really, then do they actually have the tools and the autonomy to deliver it? And we applaud, we storytell, and we really promote that our team members are able to do that. And that's what we're looking for them to do. And sure, sometimes, mistakes happen, whatnot, but I think when people really feel connected, that they are part of the bigger purpose, that makes a real difference. And then I would say the third piece that we've actually been actively working at is we call it a good jobs strategy. It's actually aligned to Good Jobs Institute, which studies retailers. And their whole premise is, good retailers versus those that aren't so good. And it's pretty simple, but it's back to making sure that people are earning a fair or a living wage, that they actually have regular schedules so they can have lives and it's balanced. And then from a guest point of view, if they're well trained and recognized, then it creates that great experience because they feel like they have a career and they're part of it. And then in our organization, we've always had the benefit of cross-training. And I don't mean that just in the sense of inside of our stores. We have numerous people that have had careers with us. So they've moved from stores into our support center. They've moved into our distribution center, our grocery gateway facility, and vice versa. We actually have people often that leave the support center and go into operating roles. So I think that just if you have that kind of connection to the purpose, you have that understanding in the organization, it really plays out in genuine service. And, I think it was Doug Stevens that talked about the fact that stores are really becoming, they're your medium. And if you want your teams to create that great guest experience, they have to feel connected. So for me, that's kind of how it all comes together.
Alex, let's follow that thread a little bit, picking up on the idea of cross-training and cross-pollination of skills, and talk about how, you have more and more depth of vertical expertise to master the complex world that is modern retail. So depth of expertise in marketing and promotions, depth of expertise in human resources. How do you two cross-pollinate each other? I said at the very beginning, we've had in the past at this forum marketers who talked about brand, so that just provide a nice framework for all the departments. How do you two on an ongoing basis kind of, so to speak, educate yourselves and your people on what are the principles with your relative disciplines? Yeah,
I mean, I feel like Liz and I now have 5 years of shorthand, right? Like all of that work across how we're defining our brand, how we're defining our employer brand, how those things come together. And we've had to pressure test it both within ourselves and across our teams, navigating transformational launches, navigating new partnerships with groups like Empire. So, we've traveled sort of a lot of miles now, and our teams have traveled it with us. So I think that helps a lot. And then I think we've got a handful of key tools that empower our teams to be able to, they can consistently come back to it. It's, it can be just broad guiding principles like, hey, we always talk to our team members before we talk to our guests. Like that's just, everyone knows it. It's part of our wiring.
Right.
And then, as a bit of a brand design sort of systems fanatic, right? Like we want it to all be cohesive and knit together. We have design guidelines and they're well-defined, they're documented, and they're very quick, easy reference points. And it can be from like the design of our PowerPoints through to, our internal communications. Like it has a look, it has a feel, it has a tone. And we have both the documents to sort of reference and train people that they can use over time. And then we just have that continuous feedback loop that we're all working together and refining these things as we go. So I think that those things make it seem pretty easy. I don't know if I'd say that if it was 5 years ago, but now after 5 years, I'm like, yeah, it's working.
Well, and let's expand the lens, kind of a last question. Let's expand the lens real quick and just talk about working with the store operators. I mean, you staff the stores. Talk about for a second or two, just bringing all this home into the folks who are running the stores.
Yeah, I think, it just goes without saying that we work cross-functionally. We involve our store managers from an HR perspective. Anything that we're going to roll out, we have store managers that sit part of the committee, part of the working committee. I talked about two very important platforms and investments that we made. They were actually there right in the beginning, helping us select the vendors, test the products, pilot. So in that type of way, we work regularly with our operations teams and our merchandising teams as well. But I would say the other piece that maybe isn't so formal, but is just so important is just spending time in the stores. Our teams are in the stores, we're in the stores, and it's a lot of times through that informal conversation, whether it be a store manager, an assistant store manager, any of our department managers, you get nuggets that you just realize, oh, wait a minute. Got to bring myself back down to reality here in terms of, what might be causing anxiety or or what might be working really well and how do I build off of it? So that's really how we work with them, is just kind of every day. They've got the most important jobs in the company for sure.
Well, Liz and Alex, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insights. It's been a real treat for me to listen. I'm sure for the viewers and for the listeners to listen in. Wish you much continued success. And with that, I'll throw it back to our fantastic Master of Ceremonies, Kevin.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Great job. And listen, I could listen to Longo's presentations all the time. It's like a family story. Liz has heard this before. My father-in-law came over on the boat from Italy with the Longos brothers, became a farmer, sold his produce to the Longos. My wife's first job was Longos. My teenager's first job was pushing carts at Longos. So it's kind of like old home week for me every time. Great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning into this special episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and click and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically twice a week. And check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Conversations with Commerce Next podcast, and the Food Professor podcast with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my all-new YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of M.E. LeBlanc Company and Maven Media. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Have a safe week, everyone.